We went to a Taylor Swift concert together. I got too loose and started hitting on other men. But then, this is crazy. I'm so shocked and ashamed because my experience was heartbreaking. How will I even be able to explain this to anybody that my marriage ended because of a harmless concert? I lack words because it sounds funny and at the same time stupid. My husband and I got divorced because I was hitting on other guys at the Taylor Swift concert he spent his money on. I was just admiring them and had a dance with a few. Not like we did anything other than that. I couldn't be more surprised about the aftermath of that night. Up till now, I still can't wrap my head around what happened between me and my husband. He served me divorce papers for a harmless dance? Come on, this is wild. Lately, I have been beginning to suspect that he had this planned out all along. If not, tell me how my husband would send me packing and divorce me 2 days after we attended a concert? This is crazy. Hello Reddit, my name is Lulu. I am a 24-year-old entrepreneur. My husband's name is Josh. He is a 25-year-old coffee shop owner. My husband and I have been married for a year and 6 months. Yes, we haven't been married for that long. I won't be dueling much on how we both met because that won't be necessary. It's quite a long build-up and I wouldn't want to bore you all with it. But just so you know, Josh and I met on a Tinder date app. And yes, just like everyone normal couples, Josh and I fell in love when we both met ourselves physically and got married to each other, and the rest was history. Josh and I had a lot of things in common. One of them was our love for Taylor Swift. We both were huge fans and we also attended lots of her concerts together. In fact, Josh and I often used Taylor Swift's concert as our date when we were just getting to know each other. It was lots of fun. It was our way of bonding more with each other. We didn't stop when we got married, but then again, I never knew that the same concert we both attended would be the one that would ruin my marriage. Honestly, it sounds like a dream to me right now. It all started when Josh and I planned on attending one of Taylor Swift's concerts like we usually do. My husband and I were beyond excited to go to the concert together. We had been counting down the days, listening to her songs on repeat and planning our outfits. We both looked forward to the concert for months. Josh and I were both huge fans and couldn't wait to sing along to all of our favorite songs together. I had even splurged on floor seats so we could have an up-close and personal experience. It was going to be a night to remember, or so I thought. Getting hold of that ticket was a huge one. We had trouble getting a ticket because it kept selling really fast. At some point, we lost hope if we were going to attend. But we kept believing and kept counting to the D-Day, even though we didn't have any tickets a month to the concert. However, my husband and I managed to get 2 for ourselves due to the help of one of his friends, David. Just like Josh and I, David and his wife, Tina, were a die-hard fan of Taylor Swift. They never miss any of her shows. But unfortunately, they were unable to go on this fateful day because they were caught up with a family dinner which he must attend with his wife. And so, both couples gave up their tickets for us. It was a last-minute decision and we were happy because we would finally be attending. But prior to that, my husband and I kept on purchasing the tickets, and when David and Tina gave us theirs, our tickets clicked 2 days before the event. At that time, we had 4 tickets in total, and we thought of giving it out to other people who were having trouble getting a ticket. And so we gave the extra 2 tickets out to a close friend of ours. From the advertisement that was ongoing at that time, we knew it was going to be crowded and fun. I prepared myself to have fun to the fullest because why not? It was a way of relieving me from all the work stress during the week. Josh also didn't hide his excitement. In fact, he closed the shop early that day so we could go on time and get a good spot where we could see our favorite Taylor Swift. So fast forward to that day. As planned, we were able to get there early, but as at that time it was already crowded, the massive turn-up was amusing. Of course, who doesn't like Taylor Swift? As we arrived at the concert venue, I could feel the excitement building up inside of me. My husband and I both stepped into the crowded arena. The energy was contagious. The stage was set with glitter and flashing lights, and the anticipation was building. As we made our way to our seats, I couldn't help but feel like a giddy teenager again. My husband and I were dancing and laughing in line, eagerly waiting for the curtains to open so we could see her. But at that moment, I started to feel a bit anxious. The energy in the arena was overwhelming, and I couldn't help but all of a sudden I started to feel a little out of place. My husband noticed my unease and wrapped his arm around me, reassuring me that everything was going to be okay. But as soon as Taylor Swift stepped onto the stage and started performing, something inside of me shifted. I couldn't explain it, but I suddenly felt this urge to let loose and have a good time. It was like I was under some sort of spell. I started dancing and singing along, but it wasn't long before I took things a little too far. I began to get a bit too wild, dancing with strangers and even flirting with a few guys in the crowd. The combination of her powerful lyrics and the adrenaline rushing through my veins made me feel invincible. And that's when the trouble started. I started dancing and singing along, completely losing myself in the moment. My husband, who usually loves my wild and carefree side, seemed a bit taken aback by my behavior. My husband looked at me with concern in his eyes, but I brushed it off, telling him I was just having a good time. But my actions were not only going unnoticed by my husband, but also by the people around us. I could see the worry in my husband's eyes, and I could feel the judgmental stares from those around me. But I didn't care nevertheless because I was having the time of my life. As the night got deeper, I started to get more loose. But this time around, I couldn't control myself any longer. The night was crazy. Everyone was happy and merry. There was lots of dancing and singing. Josh acted out of place because he couldn't understand what was wrong with me at that moment. But he went with the flow, and we both danced together. A few minutes into the dance, Josh whispered into my ears. At that time, I couldn't hear him clearly because of the loud music. But after a few seconds, I was able to grasp what he was trying to say to me at that moment. Apparently, he suggested that we go find a place to rest because I was vibrating too much to the music and looked like I was losing my mind. I honestly didn't buy the idea of leaving the crowd because I was enjoying myself. When Josh saw I wasn't interested in leaving the crowd, he held my hands and pulled me out. He brought me over to a place where we barely hear the sound of the music. Josh ordered me to sit down and asked me to wait for him while he used the restroom. At that moment, I wasn't drunk, but I was too excited and was on cloud nine. Josh left after making him believe that I wasn't drunk and assured him I wasn't going anywhere. A few minutes later, some group of guys came towards the direction I was, but sat on the table that was opposite mine. There were 4 in numbers, and all of them were cute. To make matters worse, I couldn't resist looking at one of the cute guys sitting directly opposite me. He was the only one that could see me amongst his friends. At that moment, I forgot that I was married and even lost my home training, and I shamelessly flirted with him. He flirted back and didn't stop giving me the green lights. At some point, I stopped and turned a cold face to some of his advances and focused on my phone. Not long after, this strange guy approached my table and asked if he could sit. Of course, I did let him have a seat. We introduced ourselves and chatted a little. It was at that moment that Josh came out of the restroom. He saw me conversing with this guy, and I could tell that he was a bit uncomfortable. I introduced both of them to each other. My husband sat down beside me. He was a jealous type, and he didn't hide the fact that we were married. At that moment, Josh wrapped his hands around me and kept giving this daring look to this random guy. It was a little bit awkward, but then I didn't mind it at all. Our conversation was a bit intense. It was all about the massive turnout that night, and we got deep in the conversation. For a moment, I forgot about my husband. Josh then proposed to get us drinks. We kept on chatting while my husband was getting us drinks. We took some shots, and Josh asked that we go back to the crowd because he was getting uncomfortable with my newfound friend. Honestly speaking, I was pissed because Josh was acting funny and awkward. Like, what's the big deal? We eventually left and went back to the crowd. At the time we got back, Taylor Swift was about performing one of her slower songs, which was my favorite. Most times Josh and I would dance it together, but that day, I had the dance with someone else. Apparently, it happened that the random guy and his friends were at the spot we were standing. The song came up and I danced to it with a random guy. I looked over at my husband, who had a look of disappointment and hurt on his face. It was then that I realized how my actions were affecting not only him, but our relationship as well. He couldn't help but watch me. Not long after, I went over to his place and told him it was just a dance and nothing serious. I also danced with a few other groups of random guys at that moment, not caring who saw. My husband, on the other hand, was livid. He could see where the night was headed, and he was not happy about it. He tried to talk to me to remind me that we were there together and that I was acting out of line. But I just brushed him off and continued my flirtatious behavior. By the time the concert ended and we were walking back to our car, my husband's mood had completely shifted. He was quiet and distant, and I could tell he was fuming. But I didn't care. I was still on cloud nine from the concert, and I didn't want anything to ruin my high. Usually my husband and I both analyze everything that went down after the party, but this fateful day, he left me to do the talking and gave me a deaf ear. He was not interested in what I was saying. If he had his way, he could have hit my head to the wall. Josh kept giving me a cold shoulder. The more I talked, the more he got angrier. Anytime Josh is pissed or furious, the veins of his head become more visible, and that moment it comes out more. He felt like punching something, and I quickly gave him space so he wouldn't use my face to practice, and I stopped talking. Just when we were about to enter the car, I asked him if everything was okay. But guess what? That was when Josh unleashed his anger on me. My husband yelled so loud that everyone that was outside started staring at us. Josh even gripped my hand so hard that I was very surprised. At that moment, I tried to let go of his grip, but it was difficult. Josh called me all sorts of names. He told me how I disrespected him in the concert and how I had the audacity to make fun of him by flirting and dancing with random guys. I told him it was just a harmless dance, and he gave me another hot slap. My face became red and hot. I couldn't bear the pain because it was painful. So I tried all my best and let loose from his grip. We got into a heated argument to the point that the security had to come chase us from that spot. We got into the car and Josh drove off. While we were going home, Josh drove roughly and was at a high speed. I got scared and started praying and begging to stop, but all on deaf ears. When we got to the place we were supposed to turn to our house street, Josh made a U-turn. I asked him why he did that and where he was taking me to, but he didn't say anything. Before I knew it, we were in the middle of nowhere. Josh stopped the car and got down. He then proceeded to the passenger seat and ordered me to get down. It was as if I was dreaming because I didn't understand why Josh brought me in the middle of nowhere and ordered me to get down from the car. I looked at him and asked if this was a joke and told him to stop it because it was too expensive and I wasn't finding it funny at all. I sat still and didn't step out. But then Josh pulled me out in such a way that I fell face flat on the ground. He then told me to find my way home, or better still, call those guys I danced and flirted with to come rescue me. My husband also told me this was just a tip of the iceberg because more awaits me, and this was one of the punishments he planned out for me for having the guts to make a fool out of him, and he zoomed off. I couldn't believe what I heard from Josh and couldn't believe my eyes either. I kept asking myself if this was the husband I married because Josh was never like this. I still don't understand how dancing with random guys will get Josh so furious the way he did. I saw it as a normal thing people do, but Josh's was different and took it personal. Like, really? Come on, this is so funny and unbelievable. At that moment, I was stranded. I didn't even know where I was because I had no signal on my phone to check the Google map. I checked the time and it was 12 minutes past 11 p.m. It was very late and the streets were quiet. Hardly you find anyone? To make matters worse, I didn't know where I was. The weather that day wasn't friendly. It was very cold. Josh left me stranded in the cold in the middle of nowhere. No phone signal and my battery was getting low. I managed to walk to a place before I was able to find a supermarket. Luckily, they were still open and I went there if I could get some help. I approached the store attendant and she was quite friendly with me. I narrated how I got here and told her how stranded I was. The store attendant told me the location I was and also told me I would be able to get back to town. Honestly speaking, the place I was far away from town. I thanked the lady and left. I kept walking down the route the lady described for me. It was difficult because there were few streetlights that were working that day. But all in all, I managed to get back home around 1 a.m. I knocked at the door, but Josh didn't open up. He knew I was the one, but didn't open the door for me. I kept on calling and shouting out to him, but he refused to come out. I was so angry. The cold really dealt with me that day. The next morning, I woke up with a bucket of water being splashed on my face. Apparently, Josh was washing his car that day. It was a Saturday morning, and he usually washed the car himself. On weekdays, he takes it to the car wash. He knew I laid beside the car, that was why he splashed me water. I quickly woke up and stood up all drenched up. I was very annoyed. I asked him why he did that, but he asked me to shut up and get out of his house. At that moment, I knelt down and began pleading for him to forgive me, but he walked out. Josh entered the house and didn't let me in. At that time, it was as if I was freezing because of the water he splashed on me, coupled with the harsh weather that morning. I begged him to open the door so I could change, but he refused. I looked at my purse and noticed I had my credit card. Immediately, I went to a nearby boutique and got changed. I also went to get something to eat because my stomach was grumbling because I was very hungry. After I was able to get something to eat, I called Tina if she was home, and luckily she was. Apparently, David and Tina's family dinner was just for the Friday night that clashed with the concert. I went over to her place and explained things to her and her husband. They both promised to help me and also follow me back home to talk to my husband the next day. I got a sign of relief, hoping to get back with my husband. I counted hours to the next day because I was anxious but optimistic at the same time. I was restless and couldn't sleep at night that day. The next day, after we had breakfast, we got dressed, and in less than 30 minutes, we were at my house. We knocked, and this time Josh opened the door because David was a close childhood friend to him. We got inside, and I started pleading with Josh. Tina also joined, and David shipped in, but my husband refused. He told them how disappointed and disgusting he was just by looking at me. Josh also told me how my presence irritated him. He told them everything that happened and also said he was no longer interested in the marriage. I was shocked and surprised. I couldn't comprehend all that my husband said. He told David and Tina not to waste their time because his mind was already made up. Every means to get Josh to reconsider his decision were all in vain. He also told me how disappointed he was in not being able to get the divorce papers ready because it was the weekend. His lawyer asked him to exercise patience till Monday. When Josh was done talking, he stood up and walked out. David and Tina tried their best, but there was nothing they could do to change his mind. We both headed back to their house because Josh told me he didn't want to come back and meet me. The next day was a Monday morning. Tina was a stay-at-home mom, so she doesn't go out in the mornings. That day, David left for work, and it was just me and Tina. I was restless and couldn't eat anything. Tina assured me that everything was going to be okay. A few hours after David left for work, my husband showed up. He came and didn't have that friendly face. He handed me a piece of paper and gave me a pen. My heart sank as I realized they were divorce papers. He had been so fed up with my behavior at the concert that made me think he prepared them and was now serving them to me. My hands went cold and I was taken aback. To this day, I still can't believe that my husband served me divorce papers all because I flirted with some guys at a concert. For crying out loud, it's a flipping concert. People dance and have fun. Why did mine have to end in divorce? Update, I'm back again with an update to my last post, guys. And no, nothing helped my marriage. I messed up big time, I guess. Signing the divorce papers was extremely hard because I was shocked and hurt, but a part of me couldn't help but feel a little unapologetic. Like, why will my husband choose to divorce me because of a harmless dance? I had always been the wild one in our relationship, and I thought my husband loved that about me. But apparently I was mistaken, and I guessed I had taken it too far this time. I was speechless and didn't say a word to my husband. At that moment, it was pointless. This was the party that both me and my husband loved so much. How then is the same party that would make me and my husband go our separate ways? I couldn't believe it at that moment. After signing the papers, he told me he would have my things sent to me. I insisted on packing my stuff myself, but he refused and told me he would do it in his own way, and he proceeded to take his leave. Can you guys believe that? Do you know how disrespectful that was? I didn't even get a chance to get my things out of the house myself. He was the one who did it for me. G literally threw me out of the house like a common woman. I can still remember the moment I watched my husband walk out the door. I knew deep down that I couldn't blame anyone but myself. I had let my wild side take over, and now I was paying the price. And as much as I wanted to be unapologetic, the truth was I was sorry it had come to this. But it was too late then because nothing could change my husband's decision, and all I could do was learn from my mistakes and move on. I still have cold feet for concerts till now. I don't even want to attend any concerts until further notice.